Hi, I'm Robert Rozboril. I'm here with Tim Bielik, and we are talking state championship football. We have 4 local teams still alive with Archbishop Hoban, Kirtland, St. Edward, and Mogador, all going to be playing this weekend, and we're going to kind of recap some of the games. Tim, you're going to head down to see Hoban on Thursday. What can we expect from that game?
Well, I think with Archbishop Hoban, this was kind of the ceiling that we knew this team had coming into the season when Danny Clark transferred from Massillon to Archbishop Hoban. We knew this team was going to be outstanding. They've lived up to their potential. And the biggest thing with them is they've done it with their defense. Their defense has been outstanding all season. Each of these last 2 games, they've had a defensive touchdown, be it Jonah Morris recovering a fumble against St. Vincent St. Mary, Tyler Gilchrist having a 99-yard interception return for a touchdown against Zanesville. Now they're going to go up against a Toledo Central Catholic team that has been tremendous in state championships. Remember, they won the Division III title last year in an absolute classic against Athens. They got a very talented running game led by Michael Warren, who's a very outstanding runner. They got a lot of history on that side, and that's a team that just beat Benedictine about 2 or 3 weeks ago. Benedictine ended their season with a win against Archbishop Hoban, so the Knights are going to have their hands full Thursday night, I think.
Now, moving on to Friday night, or Friday afternoon, rather. You and I are going to be there watching Mogador take on Fort Recovery. Mogador, obviously, a very defensive-minded team, a lot of different weapons there. You got Nate Confer up there on the offensive line, blocking for Zeddy Pollock in the background. And the backfield, who can do all kinds of things. You can throw the ball, you can run it. Who else are you excited about seeing in that game?
I'm excited about seeing that, trio of running backs, Austin Williams, Luke Kramer, and Josh Tompkins. Ever since Nate Alexander went down against Norwalk St. Paul with a leg injury that kept him out, has him out for the rest of the postseason, it's been that kind of 3-headed monster that they haven't really had big plays offensively, but it's just been kind of a grinded out, methodical running attack that just, as the game goes on, 2, 3, 4 yards will start turning into 6, 7, 8 yards. And against Danville last week in the state semifinals, I was at that game. For a while in that game, it was Mogador's offensive line just pushing Danville back constantly, and Austin Williams continuing to get big gains. And when I look at that offense, that's going to be key, is how well can those guys continue to push the pile and then, give Zeddy Pollock time to make some easy throws. And he made some nice plays against Danville. He had a nice touchdown pass to Andrew Barker. Barker, of course, had to shut off a defender with a nice little physical shoulder, and then it had a great scramble for a touchdown that put them up before halftime. So I think that balance, combined with their physical running attack offensively, is going to be something to watch.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of history with Mogador, too. You have Zeddy Pollock, his dad, Tom Pollock, actually quarterbacked the 79 state championship team. And Luke Kramer has had 3 relatives play in state semifinals, but he's the first one to win it. He had both of his brothers and his dad. Both made the state semis as Mogador players. Anyway, moving on to Saturday, we have Kirtland is going to be taking on Marion Local. What are you looking forward to seeing in that game?
I'm looking forward to seeing 2 teams are not going to be intimidated by the bright lights of the game. And when you look at this matchup, it's kind of the dream matchup for small school teams in the state championship. Marion Local, 4 consecutive state championships. Kirtland's been there 4 times in a row. They're 2-2, 1-2 against schools from that Vaughn and Mac conference that Marion Local hails from. But when I look at these teams in this matchup, the thing that sticks out to me more than what they do on the field is kind of how the programs have been the last few years. I mean, the fact that both teams can go through so many losses through graduation and still be back here. Both teams have a rare regular season loss. I mean, usually at this time of year, Kirtland and Marion Local are undefeated.
Right.
Both teams had a loss in the regular season, with Kirtland falling to Grand Valley and Marion Local losing the Coldwaters in the Division V championship game. When you look at those 2 programs, it's a testament to staying power for those 2 teams. Game-wise, it's going to be interesting to see how Kirtland, we all know how their throwback running attack worked with Joey Bates, who's had a great season in running backs. They're going to go against that Marion Local defense. And the Flyers like to be a balanced team. They like to run it. They like to throw it. They got a great receiver in Hunter Wilker. I'm just curious how that's going to play out.
And speaking of balance, looking to the Division I state final, we're going to have Huber Heights Wayne going up against St. Edward. I saw St. Edward just this past week against Stowe. And, St. Edward with Cole Guest obviously has a reputation as being a very heavy running team, but it ended up being their passing game, led by Jimmy Keefe, that ended up getting them the win. What's your take on that game? How do you think this is going to play out?
Well, I mean, is the rematch that I think kind of everybody thought could happen about 3-4 weeks ago, and it's just amazing. Both teams had so many changes. Obviously, Ed's losing the senior class that it had, arguably one of the best we've seen in a long time, and still to make it back to Columbus with a new coach and Tom Lombardo. You can't say enough about the job he's done. And down at Huber Heights, Wayne, the Warriors had a little bit of turnover too. You know, graduating Demetric Trice, a quarterback. They bring in Messiah DeWeaver, a Michigan State committed quarterback who played in a state championship game down in Trotwood-Madison. I mean, there's a lot of credit to go to both schools to get it back down there despite having so much change, as you obviously see in high school football, but to have that change at the Division I level. I mean, we talked about Kirtland and Marion Local doing it at Division VI level. This is the Division I level. Both these teams had so many changes, and yet they're both still here. It's just tremendous to see how, you know, those programs just continue to churn out productive teams year in and year out.
It'll be tremendous to see how all of these teams fare this weekend. Once again, I'm Robert Rozboril, and this is Tim Bielik for cleveland.com, and we look forward to this weekend full of state championship football.